Hey guys, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, the channel where we go through the good and bad of everything nerdy to make sure you spend your time on the best of the best. In today's video, I'll be doing a review of Bloodborne, so let's get into it. So if you're anything like me, you probably have a huge list of games that are on your backlog. You maybe had them for a while or you've wanted to check them out, but more and more new games keep coming out and they just get put on the back burner. Well, that was Bloodborne for me. I've been meaning to check this out. It's looked like a super cool game, and I feel like I would have enjoyed it for a long time, and I finally picked it up and decided to give it a playthrough. And so in this video, I'm going to cover how I really feel about Bloodborne, if I think it's worth playing, and should you add it to your nerd library. So again, let's get into it. So in Bloodborne, you play as a hunter who is living in this city that has become overrun by a bloodborne pathogen, acting like a plague that has been transforming the city and its inhabitants into bloodthirsty monsters. And you're going through trying to hunt them all down and solve the mystery of this ongoing plague and corruption affecting this city. So it's almost like a medieval Resident Evil style third-person action RPG where you're playing as this demon hunter that's using enormous weapons to take down zombie-like creatures, monsters, and more. And so this game is very similar to the Dark Souls franchise, where again, it's a third-person action RPG. The difficulty level is extremely high and intense with this game, and it has those dark gothic undertones as well. And so when you first start off the game, you create your own character from scratch. There's various different class types you can choose from, and then you can build out your character how you like from there, adjusting their appearance and stats, body size, and more. So when you first get started in the game, your character is thrown out into this world. You're not really understanding what's going on. There's not much of a plot going on either at this point, and so you're thrown into the mix, and immediately, for the most part, you're going to die instantly, right? Your first encounter with an enemy with a monster is going to utterly destroy you, but that's actually part of the game where you're going to be transported to the hunter's dream, and this is kind of like your hub world area where you're able to get items, improve your character, and more. And so at this point, you're able to get your first weapon within the game, and this is really going to determine the play style that your character has when you first get started in the game. And so there's various different weapon types that you can choose from. And again, this is going to alter your play style as you go, as the various moves of the weapons are vastly different. It's kind of neat. Each weapon has a main mode and then a secondary mode that you can switch between on the fly. So I chose the hunter's axe for the most part when I played the game. And so you started with kind of a smaller axe that you could carry around and wield with one hand, and then hold a secondary weapon like a gun or a torch. And then it could also shift into a longer axe where you could do some more range damage to keep enemies at a distance and attack multiple enemies at the same time. And so like I said, there's various weapons you can choose from in the beginning of the game, and this can alter your playstyle as you go. But once you're thrown into the world, like I said, it's extremely difficult. That's where a lot of people will liken this to a Dark Souls game. Beyond the playstyle, the extreme difficulty is there, but at the same time, as I went through, the first couple hours of the game were pretty much hell for me. I died constantly over and over again. One thing that was a little bit different with this game compared to Dark Souls Remastered, for example, that I've played recently, is the fact that you need to get to the first boss in this game before you can even start leveling up your character. So you really have to master and learn a lot of the mechanics, where enemies are popping out and how to defeat them before you even get to that first boss and are able to start leveling up your character. Now, the good news is you don't actually have to beat that first boss to start leveling up your character. You just need to make it there, and then at that point, you're given the ability to start leveling up and powering up your character. One big thing you'll notice too, if you're new to these types of games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, is that as you gain experience in this action RPG, it isn't actually applied to your character on the spot. You need to go back to this hunter's dream hub area and then implement these blood echoes onto your character's stats from there. And so this can be super frustrating because all of the blood echoes that you gather throughout the game, if you do happen to die, you lose all of them. Now your corpse is basically left behind, so if you can make it all the way back to where you were, you can retrieve those blood echoes, but if you happen to die between respawning and making it all the way back there, you actually lose all of that experience and effort that you put in to get those blood echoes. And so the game auto saves constantly, so there's not the opportunity to reload to a previous save. if you happen to make a stupid mistake, and that's often what will happen. So that can get very frustrating as you play the game. But one thing I definitely noticed compared to Dark Souls Remastered, for example, is that I didn't feel like in this game there were so many cheap deaths, where for Dark Souls Remastered, I kind of always felt like I was falling off the edge of the cliff, or I misstepped and then fell to my death, or something stupid would happen, I would die out of nowhere, and it always kind of felt like it was cheap or out of my control. Where this game, I still died constantly, but I felt like it was something that I did wrong, that I didn't face a monster good enough, I used a stupid strategy, I got overwhelmed by monsters where I didn't pick them off individually. So again, for the most part in this game, I felt like when I died, I did something stupid, it was my fault. But for the casual player, this aspect of dying constantly can be very frustrating. And so many people may not like that aspect of the game. But if you like a challenge, once you learn the game mechanics, there were times where I played for well over an hour, almost 2 hours straight without dying. And so it definitely is possible in this game, where I felt like maybe other Dark Souls games I played, that wasn't really the case. And there was a lot more deaths where I felt like I was cheated out of it versus by myself just playing stupid. Now, as you play, you'll level up your character and their various stats, and that's cool, where you can choose virtually any aspect of your character that you want to level up, whether it's strength, whether it's endurance, vitality, and more. You can really customize your character as you grow each ability point. On top of that, you have your different weapons that you can level up. It's kind of like a crafting system where you'll use your blood echoes that you collect, but then also various gems and bloodstones that you collect along the way as well, from enemies and ones that you find throughout the stages, and this can allow you to increase your power as well. Another neat aspect is that the weapons have kind of a gem type system where you are able to equip various gems on your weapons, and this again can power them up further or customize their stats and abilities. So you'll always really have these base weapons that you start with. Depending on what playstyle you like and what weapons you like to use, you can continue to level them up and make them stronger, in addition to leveling up your character. Now, one thing that maybe I need to play the game more or do subsequent playthroughs of the game, but I didn't necessarily feel like there was kind of separate classes like there was in other various Dark Souls types games that I've played, where you might have a character that you kind of build into like a mage class or a warrior type class, or maybe like a thief class where you're more agile and you can dodge and run away. Or in this game, I kind of felt like you did have those different weapons that you could use, but it didn't feel like a totally different kind of character. Like it was still the same character, you just had a different kind of attack based on the weapons that you were using. But again, let me know in the comments below. Maybe I just haven't played this game enough and experimented enough with the characters, but that's how I felt it worked out when I played the game and was creating my character. The game also has a bunch of different armor that you can collect, but again, maybe I just was confused on how the system worked, but I felt like all of them didn't really give you a huge advantage or disadvantage based on what you were wearing. So I basically wore the same armor I got early on in the game for the entire rest of the game, because again, it'd be like some stats go up, some stats go down, and it's like I don't really know what's appropriate in this situation, and I almost felt like it depended more on my play style and how good I learned the patterns and how well I was able to dodge enemy attacks that made the biggest difference versus the armor that I might be wearing on my character. But again, let me know in the comments below. Maybe I just need to play the game multiple times through to experience that and really be able to tell the difference. But playing through the first time, I never really noticed that. And I just kind of felt like I had all these different armor types, but it didn't really matter and I never used them. Another part of the game that I thought was really cool is that it's kind of like all of the areas are intertwined and tied together through various shortcuts and different paths in the stages. And so I thought that was really cool, where again, you start off, you only have access to certain areas, but as you progress, you'll unlock various doors and gates and find that all of these different areas combine together. And it's also cool because when you first get started, it might take you 30 minutes, an hour or something like that to get through an area. But then after you've completed the whole thing, you realize there was a tiny shortcut available the entire time that you could have just gone through early on. So you constantly are discovering new aspects of the area and I found that to be a lot of fun as you went through and played. Now, most of the bosses in the game are mandatory, and you're going to fight these huge epic boss fights, which are really fun. Sometimes you'll even pull in NPC characters as fellow hunters to help you take down these various bosses. But one thing that I did notice is that as I progressed towards the end of the game, there was actually a few areas that I completely neglected, and it almost became optional at that point. So I wanted to go back through and find additional equipment and find different items to level up my character. And so that was fun to be 30 hours in or so and be able to discover new areas that I missed the first time going through the game. Another neat aspect too is as you progress further, there's a rune system where you can equip different runes to give your character various ability boosts, like gaining more blood echoes, improving your HP, allowing you to hold more blood vials, which refill your health as you play. And so that was really neat. Another aspect I liked about the game compared to, again, like a Dark Souls type game, in Dark Souls you have these Estus flasks, which you can heal yourself with, and in this game you have blood vials. Now what's different between this game and those is that in this game you could find more blood vials as you went through and played. So you might defeat enemies, you're going to pick up more blood vials, where in Dark Souls, the only way to refill those was actually stay at a campsite or basically like a save point, which are like the lanterns in this game. And so that made it nice where you could keep yourself alive longer and continue to push yourself further in the levels. And on top of that, you almost had kind of like a vampire ability in a sense where sometimes enemies would hurt you and your life bar would go down, but you could slash and attack them and refill some of your health if you attack them fast enough in the short enough time window from when you were actually hurt. So this was another cool feature where you could maybe regain some life, or if there's monsters surrounding you from all sides and they're attacking you, you might be able to do a big slash and attack all of them and regain a big portion of your health to survive to the next area. So I think it really increased the intensity where maybe in like a Dark Souls game you might die at that point, where this way you might be able to fight your way out of it because you had that life absorbing ability as you played. I also felt like at some points the game could get a little bit grindy, so if you like that, like me, that's great. But if you don't like that aspect in RPGs, you might not enjoy that as you play, where you might be revisiting areas multiple times to get more blood echoes to level up your character. Because again, if you played through very well and collected a bunch, you might have tens of thousands of blood echoes that you could use to level up your character, only to die right before you're able to use them, and then you lose them all. So it might require some grinding on your part to level up your characters and get past various boss fights if you happen to die along the way as you play. Another neat aspect to the game, in this hunter's dream area, there are various gravestones where you can erect chalices to basically create your own dungeons that you can go through. And these dungeons can be very difficult at times or easy depending on when you jump into them at various points in the game. But you'll find as you go through, you can find unique monsters, unique boss fights, and unique items that you can equip to your character as well. So I think that adds to the replay value. If you want to just do some dungeon diving and grinding in these various dungeons to get better items, they don't necessarily tie into the story as much, but it is a cool feature where you can kind of create your own dungeon. And you can even play these dungeons with other people online as well if you choose to. But you can tackle them solo offline as well. I also think the game has a lot of replayability because like I said, once you get past that first few hour mark of constantly dying, you start to get the hang of things and you can progress and play for a lot longer. And I think then as you would play a New Game Plus, for example, where you can bring in some of your equipment and stats, it makes it a lot more fun going through the second time because you know the layout and you know how to play longer without getting destroyed by all the monsters. On top of that, the game has multiple endings, so that's another cool feature where you might want to play through multiple times just to be able to unlock those different endings of the game as well. The game also has a DLC to it. I haven't played through that yet, so I'll definitely have to check that out. Maybe do a future video and let you know how that is. But the main game itself, it's very challenging, but it is a lot of fun. It's super addicting once you get into it. I think if you're looking for a challenging action RPG, I would highly recommend picking up this game and adding it to your nerd library. But let me know in the comments below, how does this game compare to other Dark Souls games that you've played? Do you feel like this is the best one of that type? Do you think this is better or worse? Tell me about your experiences in the comments below. If you guys like this video, be sure to smash that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on those bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out here. And if you'd like to help us support the channel, pick out content and more, become a patron of ours at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And if you'd like to plug into our live streams and Let's Plays we do on the channel, you can follow us on Twitch at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Twitch. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.